that's all the little things, the decisions you have to make, and the decisions I made in the Winter League this year. I fished that all year round during the series, and it was absolutely superb. Look at that, honestly, it is absolutely mega. Hello, my name's Des Shipp, and today I've brought you to probably one of the best known fisheries in the country. It's Tunnel Barn. It's a fantastic fishery. It's a fishery that I come and I actually fish the teams of 4 Winter League. Now that runs from sort of just before Christmas to sort of the sort of mid-February. Now obviously we all know the weather this winter especially has been quite mild, very, very wet, and my team, Southwest All-Stars, went on to win this Winter League here. And believe you me, it's a very difficult league to win. There's a great standard of angler, you know, everybody's really competitive, and if you don't get it right, you don't do enough to win. And that's why I've brought you back. I actually won it individually as well, so that was a major bonus for me because I don't do that much F1 fishing. So I thought, what a lovely opportunity to bring you back and fish like I have been during the winter. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is mix some ground bait up, because the last 2 Winter Leagues on this venue especially, and a lot of my fishing over the last couple of winters, ground bait has been so important. You know, it's not just about summer fishing. Ground bait for F1s in the winter can be absolutely deadly. So let's get back to my peg. I'm on extension lake peg 33, which is a peg that I drew twice, and the first thing I'm going to do is mix some ground bait up. Ground bait choice for me this winter, it was something that I sort of brought from my other fishing as well. And there was 2 ground baits. The first ground bait was Super Crushed Green. As you see, the bag's already open, so I've used it all the time now. And it fitted round this venue really, really well. And obviously it's fitted around a lot of my fishing during this, you know, sort of this winter especially. Now, when I first come to the first Winter Leagues, I actually use this just neat out of the bag, but Super Crushed Green is lovely if you want to make a cloud, but you can't quite bind it enough. Now what I started doing was introducing just Super Crushed Expander as well, and that give it, you know, the same sort of principle as Super Crushed Green, but it made it so I could bind it together, and that's going to be really important for how I'm going to fish today, which was basically with a bread punch. I could sort of stick that into the ground bait and punch out these little nuggets of ground bait. And when I was using Super Crushed Green on its own, it wasn't quite right, and I just added a bit of Super Crushed Green to it. It made it absolutely bang on. So let's get a bit of the Super Crushed Green in. I mixed it about 50-50. I didn't sort of measure it out really, because I didn't need that much. But as the sort of league went on, there was more and more fishing down the edges, and you could actually feed quite a lot of ground bait. You could put like a big pot in it. So let's just add a bit of water. And the lovely thing about these 2 ground baits is you can't really mess it up. If you make it too wet, you can just add a little bit more dry ingredients in and it just comes back perfect. That's obviously a bit too dry at the moment. And what I've done was like mixed it quite damp, a little bit damper than that. It does take quite a lot of water because they're sort of both expander pellet mixes, but very different as well. That Super Crushed Green is actually a manufactured pellet for the actual Sony Baits factory. Now that come out a bit like that colour, sort of a, you know, sort of not too dark a green, which was nice for me because the water went really clear some matches, and it was sort of better. I just felt it was better, especially when I was fishing maggots on the hook. So what I'm going to do now is leave that, and I'll just push it through the finest Preston riddle that we do, and I'll obviously leave that for 10 minutes. I'll go on setting a few things up, and I'll come back to it and show you what the finished ground bait looks like, because it was really, really important to get that right. I'm ready to go now. Now let me just show you the ground bait. Now I've mixed it, like put it through the riddle and got it dead right. As you can see from that, it's sort of a lightish green, which obviously when you're fishing during the winter months and the fish are a little bit, you know, they don't really want to come over a light mix. One, I felt that green super crust was just toning it down a little bit. And as you can see, I've got my big bread punch there. You can put it in there. And it's quick as easy as that. And that, if I used the super crust green on its own, it would do that, but it would break down really, really quickly. And it dried out, and just putting that super crust expander with it, it made it bind together like that. So when I wanted it to go down, if I was fishing in quite deep water down the middle, I could put that little ball in there, go down. If I was fishing over in shallow water, then sometimes I wouldn't put a ball in, I'd just put it in loose and let it come out and make a big cloud. But that was an absolute must during this winter for me, especially on it. I can see probably how firm that is actually. It's quite nice. But without that crust expander, it wasn't quite the same. That's why I added it in. So that's my ground bait. I've got a selection of pellets, because pellets for me never come into play until the very last round. We had a bit of a mild spell. It's quite cold this morning. There was a frost this morning. There's been a frost here the last couple of days. I don't know whether it's going to work, but obviously starting on pellets like I did on the last round was crucial, believe you me. And it can change like that F1 fishing, and that's something you've got to be aware of. So I've got some fishery 4 mils, because that's what I caught on the last round. I actually fished expanders over the top, but I fed 4 mils and micros. I couldn't quite keep feeding 4 mils all the time. I had to put micros in to get the fish in, because I think the temperature was sort of just on the verge of probably just catching on hard pellets. I think that's gone again now, because we've had 2 or 3 frosts. And I've got some fishery 2 mils. I've just soaked them. Obviously I've done this every single round. I tried pellets, and to be honest with you, it wasn't until the last round, like I said, I caught on them. And I've just soaked them with the same amount of water. So put your pellets in a container like that, put the same amount of water and just leave them. I've got some 4 mil Pro expanders, which I've done in a bit of bait booster. They're lovely and jubbly, like nice and soft. Took probably about 40 minutes to do, and they're ready to go. And I've just got a selection of maggots. I've got some reds and whites, and I've also got some pinkies. Pinkies this year for me never come into play, not really. I managed to put like a maggot and a pinky on the hook, but I didn't actually feed any. The fishing was exceptional this year at Tunnel Barn, and but I always brought some, because it depended on where you drew, etc, etc. But the pinkies never come in, but I always bring some just in case. So that's the bait all done. Rigs, quite simple. Let's talk about elastics now. 9 Jura, which is the pink one, that basically I fished that all year round during the series, and it was absolutely superb. Honestly, I never lost hardly any fish at all. I caught skimmers, F1s from all sorts of sizes, from 4 ounces up to sort of 2.5 pound. Some, you know, roach skimmers, and that elastic for me done everything this year. I didn't think about bringing it sort of down a notch. I just thought it was absolutely superb. Main lines, because we're talking like winter time, presentation of the float was absolute key. Fishing for these little tiny indications. I only fished 011 power line, and obviously as we go along in the year, you'll step that up. So obviously if we had a mild spell now, we started catching on maybe meat and pellets, you probably step up to 013, and then so on as you go along in the year. Float wise, my favourite float of all time, F1 maggots in various sizes, from 4B10s up to 4B16s if the wind, but normally I was fishing 4B12 and 4B14s, which is what I'm fishing today. 4B14 on this rig. This is for down the middle. Simple bulks and 2 number 10 droppers. Normal rigs, nice and easy. 6-inch hook length of 010 Aki power. And my favourite hook for this sort of winter F1 was an 18 SFL tied to, like I said, tied to 010. It's just very impressive hooks. Fish don't come off. You can fish single and double maggot on there, and you can even fish with little expanders. So that's my middle rig. I've set up another couple of rigs. This is the rig. This peg actually at 13 meters comes up, and there's like a plateau. And when you actually plumb up, you think, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. There's going to be so many fish over there. Believe you me, on this peg, I did catch some fish there one round, but you just think you're going to get one to chuck and you don't, but it plums up absolutely perfect. Like I've always said with my sort of 4B12s, talk about elastic, same elastic, same main line, and I've just got this strung out in the first sort of two and a bit foot. So I've got, what have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number 10s spread out, same hook, 010 to an 18 SFL, and I got a couple of little adjustment stops on there just to get the float dotted right down. If it's obviously dotted down a little bit too far, I can either put a little bit of float Vaseline on it or take one of the little stops off. And then on the last round, because we did have that small mild spell, there was some fish to be caught short. I actually probably caught, I think it was 10 F1s in the last hour. I probably went on it a little bit too late, but I've set up a little shallow rig today. This is a 4B10 F1 maggot, and at the moment I've just got 5 number 10s spread out, but obviously because it is winter times, you can catch a lot of these F1s on the drop, whereas it warms up, you'll probably be fishing with little bulks, but I can just bulk that down. Depends what happens today. Obviously I'm taking in, we've had a few nasty frosts in the last few days, the water's lost its colour again, but it was one of them rigs you basically just had set up just in case, because on the first round I fished, I think it was in November, I actually caught late shallow. I actually won the match. So you never know. It's always worth setting a shallow rig up just in case. So I'm going to start off now. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to start on pellets and see how we get on, because that's what I would do on a lot of, unless the conditions were really bad and you had no confidence in pellets at all. But hopefully today we can catch some on pellets, but I'll talk you through that as we get going. It's always a tricky one when you come to a venue like Tunnel Barn and F1 venues all over the country, is where you're going to start. Now, obviously, I could dob bread, and it's something I've done a few times during the Winter League. And bread wasn't great, to be honest. I had one match where I actually caught a few fish on. And as we did in every Winter League this year, it starts raining. So it's freezing cold and raining, but at least it stayed quite mild. But I'm going to start on like I did on my last match I fished, because there's a bit of colour in the water. We've had lots of rain, and even though it's cold, that sort of rainwater has put some colour in the lakes, and I just think it's worth a gamble of starting on pellets, which is what I'm going to do. So I've set up a top kit. I can actually fish, and it's something I think is really important on this line, which is a top kit in 3 line, but I can fish a top kit in 2. I can fish to my left, and I can also fish to my right. And that's something which is really important with F1 fishing, during the winter and springtime, is giving yourself an option of moving about. Sometimes you don't have to, but some matches you've got to. But anyway, I'm going to start in front of me, because that's where I want to fish, in front of me. I'm going to start with a 4mm expander, and I'm going to put just some loose 2mm pellets in, not millions. That's a small cab pot on there. I'm going to half fill it. I'm not going to feed anywhere else, and I just wanted to see what is going to happen. Now I've plumbed up as my normal plumbing up, so the body of the float is just out of the water, and hopefully we'll get a quick response. But there's one thing I want to do very quickly, is start throwing a few 4mm soaked hard pellets over the top, because there's nothing better than getting those fish on that bigger pellet. It doesn't always happen, and the last round I fished, I had to try and get, I was feeding hard soaked 4 pellets over the top, and I would get a little run, but now and again I'd have to stop and put either a little ball in of micros or some loose, depending on I felt how the fish were responding. If I felt the fish were coming off the bottom, I'd put like a little punched ball of micros in. If I felt there was nothing there, and I'd put some loose in. But you never know from one day to the next. And hopefully we get a fast response. You never know. So I've got my float dotted right down, I've blacked it out, I can see it absolutely lovely, and not so easy now it started raining, but it's just typical. Oh, there we go. I literally went to lift and drop that and had a little tiny dink straight away. So that's brilliant. So what I'm going to do is I'm playing that one, I'm going to get a few of those soap 4 mils and literally chuck like 4 or 5 over the top. Small F1, probably one of the original stockies a couple of years ago. And there was a lot of these fish caught this year for some reason. It was great fishing. So a nice small landing net. Don't want nothing too big when you're F1 fishing. So I've got a 16-inch landing net. What a great start. Nice little pound F1. So straight back out. This is where you got to start thinking, right, is it going to be really good? Because I've had one within, well, not long, a minute, I reckon. So do I go back in? I'm going to go back in. I threw them few 4 mils. And as springtime comes in, these 4 mil pellets on these venues will be so important. So let's just drop that straight down. Got myself marked up with a little reed bed on the island. Holding that pole right over top your float, so every little dink, you straight into it. I can always shorten that. I've probably got about 18 inches of line between my float and my elastic at the moment, but I could reduce that if I wanted to. But for me, this time of year, when I'm fishing for sort of, it's cold, you know, the fish aren't going absolutely crazy, I do strike quite aggressive at every bite, even with expanders. I'm not fussed about bringing it back and putting another bait on. I'm only fishing short, so I'm not fussed about that. In the summertime, you could be fishing with real short lines, literally lifting like that, and until the fish is on. This time of year, I don't want that. I want to try and hit every bite, be quite aggressive in my striking, so I get the hook into the fish correctly. So I'm just sitting there nice and patient. And where have I plumbed up? I've plumbed up in this peg, on this line, obviously to my right and to my left at the same distance, so I can change if I want to. And I've also plumbed up at 11 meters, the same rig, so it's nice, but then it comes up on a plateau and I can fish several areas if I need to out on the 14.5 meter line. There's nothing at 13, it's a tricky one because you're right on the shelf. You literally come back a foot from your 13 meter line and you feel your plummet going down like a real sort of stony shelf. And I'm obviously not going to want to fish on that. So at the moment, I've not had another bite. It might be worth just trying to throw in just a few 4 mils. Little bit of noise, you know, little area rather than potting them in at the moment. Just lift and drop that. It's always in your mind when you're doing this with pellets, how long do I give it? The nice thing of having another line at the same distance, a little distance away from where you started, if later in the match, you know, you've been on maggots, you've put your ground bait in, etc., etc., and it's not happening, and you want to just go back to pellets, you can do. Because when I turn, if I was to turn this line into like a maggot line, I probably wouldn't go back on it with pellets. It never seems to be the right thing to do. Going from pellets to maggot seems to be fine, but not going back to pellets. But at least now I've got an option of going over to my right hand line and starting pellets again if you want to. There's all them little things that are going through my mind as soon as I start fishing. Let's come back, just put a few more micros in. I'm not just going to sit there and sit there. So half fill that little cad pot. I'm going to put a little bit of bait in because even though we've had a couple of real nasty frosts over the last few days, I still think the fish are going to respond to a bit of bait. So drop that straight down. I'm hoping that the 4 mils kick in, but they might not, you never know. Well, nothing there. I'm just going to throw a few more, just a few 4 mils, hardly anything, because I just don't know what's going to happen yet. Just got to take it easy. It's amazing that you come to these waters like Tunnel Barn and you can go in on pellets and it just sits there, no response. You might get a couple and then you change to maggots and the response is amazing. It's a really, really weird sort of game, really, sometimes. Because you're obviously always thinking as well, I mean, am I in an area with fish? Is there enough fish here to sort of catch on pellets like quickly? But you just got to give it a little bit of time. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get my punch and just make a little punched out ball of micros. Like that. Sort of a little bit smaller than an 8mm pellet. There's a bite then. Just look round and had a bite. Tiny little indication. I can't stress the importance of getting your float dotted down. I've always spoke about it, so I'm going to throw a few 4s in. Now this might get going, but it's not a bad little start. The duck just nearly took me top kits out. Get out of there. Another one of those pounders. Freezing cold, even though it's like a bit milder today. Like I said, it has been, we've had a few days of really hard frosts. And as this winter's gone along, it's been like this all winter. The weather's just changed so much. So I am now going to put one of those little balls in. Like that. I haven't got a lid on my pot, so I'll just go really careful because I'm only fishing short. And you can always drop that little ball, just like that. It's worth sometimes just dropping a little ball a little bit shorter than where you're fishing, because them F1s do hang off your bait some days. And because it's quite a deep area of the lake, it can be quite tricky sometimes. That if they don't want to feed on the bottom properly, if you just drop your bait, there we go. Look at that, look. The difference is massive. So a few 4 mils, or 4 or 5, that's all. So these are like the stockies that were introduced a couple of years ago, and they can be an absolute nightmare to catch, believe you me. But good little weight building when you're trying to catch between, I would say, 30 odd to 50 pound during the winter. It's great fishing, but so close, really close sometimes. The weights have been mega close this year. So I'm not going to feed this time. Very negative, but there's a reason for that. So I can make another little ball up and get me punching me micros. Ground bait might not even come into play today. If they have pellets, then it may not. So punch out another little ball ready. Might have to feed. Oh, I'm not sure that was the rain or the little indication then. And I always try to fish, especially this time of year, with a black float. So obviously just put a marker on it, and if I can, I try and fish where I can fish a black float because it's so much easier to see. You see every little indication. Just throw a few fours over the top, just to try and build it up. It might not work like that today, but this has been the problem with this winter. You come in on a venue like this during your winter matches and it's mild on the morning, but obviously we might have had 3 days of really cold mornings, so you just got to feel your way into it. It's like now, it feels like now I should have had another bite. So let's put another little ball in. I'm going to just literally put half of one of those little nuggets in. Just go nice and easy to get it out there. And just drop that a fraction short. And this is what I've been doing all winter with little balls of ground bait. Like I said, not so much with micros because the pellets haven't been working great. So my next sort of stage now is, do I move? Do I just go to another line? Perhaps they've sort of moved away. Or do I change my baits? And that's always the things that are gambles in this style of fishing. There we go. Tiny, tiny little indication. Better size one, eh? So a few 4 mils. You have got to be patient. Obviously we are still in winter mode, there's no doubt about it. I don't know what the water temperature is, but it's cold. When I mix my ground bait up and put my hands in the water, I don't want to go for a swim, put it that way. Get out of there. You always try and get under your platforms here. You can see that fish quite a way down as well. I'll probably see it like 2.5 foot down. So that gives you like how actually clear the water is. It's a nice colour. It's a nice colour for pellets, I think, when you get that bit of rainwater in it. Doesn't always work, but that's the thing I look at going to venues. Don't they have scrap for little F1s? Slightly bigger. Not one of the old style ones that are in there. Some massive F1s in this lake. Beautiful condition, eh? Nice little start. go. Just try and bring him out of the peg. A few 4s. Now in my mind, do I feed the little ball of micros again? Just trying to go and catch one more, I think. Because what I don't want is to start getting them off the bottom, foul looking. Because that's the worst scenario of all. Slightly bigger one. Great fish, you know, in the winter. I absolutely love it, I do. Where you can get your little floats dotted right down. Building a nice weight in a team match. And that, for me, in the winter, I love a bit of team fishing in the winter. I think it's great when you're just fishing for points, you know, trying to win a few quid for the journey home with your travelling partners and stuff. I think it's absolutely great. So that was literally right on the same area. And that's what I also think about as well. If I thought this needed resting, I could go on my short line or maybe my long line. If I can catch F1 short, I normally try and stick with it because it's obviously a lot easier and you can put a weight together very, very quickly. That would depend on how your match goes and how difficult the fishing is. But what I'll see now is see what happens in the next few minutes, and I'll probably feed the long line but just leave it for a few minutes before I go on it. There's a few bubbles coming up now, so there might be skimmers. You never know. It's my first fish over 14.5 meters on that shelf. That inside line, it was all right, but I started catching a few skimmers and thought I need to rest it, get away from it a bit. And this is the gamble you got to take. Over, I decided just to go straight on maggots. I put a little nugget of ground bait in 10 minutes before I've actually gone over long. But when I've gone over, just fishing with double maggot, even on that 18, which is a small hook, it doesn't matter. And then I went over with, I've got a little cab pot on there, cab pot in roughly about 25 maggots, something like that. So I am putting a bit of bait in. I'm not like feeding nothing. And I started throwing a few maggots. I just fancied, like, them pellets were all right, but it wasn't what I was expecting, where when they got going, they sort of faded away. And with the water conditions, you know, freezing cold. And I've done exactly the same over there as what I've done with short line. If I want to, or need to, is I can go to my left about 3 or 4 meters and start another line on exactly the same depth. And that's what I try and do on all these sort of F1 waters, is have that option. Because depths of water some days are massive. They'll be in a certain depth. You'll catch a few here, there and everywhere, but you do some days find a depth of water that they want to be in, and you've got to, like, maybe have 2 or 3 lines in that depth of water to keep catching. But at the moment, that line in front of me, and I always do try and fish if I can in front of me, because it obviously makes it a lot easier. And sometimes you go over in that depth of water, 3 foot, 2 foot, whatever whatever your peg allows, and it doesn't work. I've drawn this peg 2 times in the Winter League. There you go, lovely that. If you can get them in that depth of water, a bit shallower, it's amazing. And sometimes you get liners, they won't go down. It can be very frustrating. So while I'm playing that one, I'm just going to throw a few maggots, not loads, on that short line. And I'm just using that ground bait to get them in the peg and then get them on the maggots. Same as what I'm trying to do with that pellet line. Feed the micros, or was feeding the micros. Trying to get them onto them fours, but them fours, they didn't really respond like which it could have. I don't say what I thought of, because you never know with this fishing. I always say it could have, because you never know from one day to the next, especially when the water's cold. So I've got a little 4B12 F1 maggot, a yellow F1 maggot. They work where you can actually see the yellow so nice. So just tapping them out, just dropping that straight down. Yes, lush that. Great fishing. So I think going over there on maggots was the way, because what I'm looking for on that pellet line as well is I'm not getting bitted out by roach. Some days these venues, the little roach feed, and they can be an absolute pain, but I never caught one on soft pellet, and they do like a bit of soft pellet fishing, them little roach. That's a better one. So again, just go careful with how many you're going to feed on that short line. Don't overdo it. There's one thing I've learned up with F1 fishing, especially this time of year, and when, you know, we did catch a few fish on the last round shallow, they're shallow anyway. It's not always the case if you've got to prime it up for 3 hours. You only just got to start fishing and they're there. Like peas in a pod then, but good weight builders. So double maggot. Them 18 SFLs are absolutely so good for maggot fishing in that for F1s, even though they are small. So just going to put like 20 maggots in. Just dip them in the water, stop them coming out on the way out. I've got my rollers set up nice. Try and keep everything nice and smooth. I've got a ghost top on here, but I don't really mind either way. I do probably use ghost tops when I'm fishing in shallow water. So drop that straight down. Now this can change. Obviously, all of a sudden it might just slow up. I might start catching little fish. Then it might be the case of putting another little bit of ground bait in, if you fancy it. Coming back short, or even feeding another line in that depth of water where I've plumbed up to the right hand side or the left hand side. Always have a good plumb up, because if it is a real tough day, you might have to use several lines just to keep your weight ticking over. So I'm just sitting there nice and patient. And this is where F1 fishing becomes quite tricky, when you sit there, you know, you're trying to gauge, should I have had a bite by now? Should I come back and put a little ball of ground bait in? Should I come back and put a few more maggots in? In my mind at the moment, if I don't get a bite within the next 30 seconds, I'll probably be coming back, because the bites I've had there have been pretty quick after I've fed. There we go. Oh, yellow. That's the bottom. Don't know what I've hooked there. Someone else's line by the looks of it. The float went under. It must have been a liner. I don't know. The hook's just come off. It hasn't. Sound it back over. But this time I'm going to put a little punch ball of ground bait. I don't know what that was actually. I've never hooked nothing on this peg when I've drawn it. Just get another little nugget of ground bait. Same principle as what I've been doing with those micros. Just put that in the cad. No maggots, just the ball of ground bait. There we go, straight on that little ball, see? So now I can come back and use it like I was with the micros. Do I put another little ball in? That's all the little things the decisions you have to make and the decisions I made in the Winter League this year. And like I said, sometimes you went home and thought, I've done that as right as I could. God, that fish is absolutely bitterly cold. Like, that's like holding a block of ice. And that's something that, like, today I would have took into consideration of how am I going to approach it. So I'm just going to put another little nugget in. It's lovely fishing. I love it when you can mess about with little bits of ground bait and stuff like that. And this time I'm just going to put a little, sort of like 10 maggots over the top. I'm not going to dob it in the water this time, so I don't want that ground bait to break down. It's quite a way to go, and like I said earlier in the film, I wouldn't try and fish across unless I have to. If I was catching well enough short, I would have stuck with it, because F1 fishing is about that. Is if you can catch them short, it doesn't, you know, a lot of my winter fishing was you had to fish long during the day or parts of the day. Yellow tip floats, I can see it. Amazing, there you go, bite straight away. Definitely felt that. I had a couple of little liners before that, so this time I'm not going to put any ground bait in. I'm just going to fish, just pot in some maggots. Love this fishing. That's probably about 3.5 foot of water I'm fishing in there, which is probably about the shallowest water I can get in on this peg. So I'm just going to carry on with that, just work it out whether I've got to put ground bait in or not. But absolutely amazing fishing. Bit of a catch up. I've gone off that, when I was fishing that long line, it was really nice fishing. Just putting an odd little board. If I didn't put ground bait in, it's the same as that inside line, they wouldn't stay. And what I've done, I come back, I've been throwing maggots, made a decision to start throwing maggots in, because I think we all know in the winter time and spring, maggots, if they come on maggots, it can be absolutely mega. So I come back after probably fishing over for a good hour. I come back, I had a quick go on the bottom and had a few little liners. Just felt I'm going to try shallow, and I haven't fed loads of bait. I've just like chucked 10 maggots or so on that short line whilst I've been fishing long, and I've just picked up my shallow line. Now that shallow line is the same depth as a Ventilite side tray standard, so I would say it's probably 18 to 20 inches, and it is absolutely brilliant. It's lovely to catch F1s or any species of fish during the winter shallow. I've just got it strung out. I said not feeding loads. Look at that, honestly, it is absolutely mega. Not a sign, no boils, no nothing. I've just gone in there and had 4 in 4 chucks. And I've just started filming again. And the good thing is they're slightly bigger as well. Same hook, 18 SFL, single red maggot, but I've got a 4-inch hook length rather than 6-inch hook length. And just a strung out 4B10 F1 maggot. You can see that. I've got 1, 2, 3, 5 number 10s just strung out. And these are the sort of rigs that I've caught on during the winter. Obviously you don't catch shallow every time in the winter, but you've got to be prepared just in case, because it can happen. So just got that one out, fed like 10 maggots. You don't have to keep bombing bait in. Not sure how long they're going to stay. Oh, tiny little bite then. And this depth I've got here is the depth I've caught shallow on 2 of the matches. On one of the matches I caught loads shallow at the end, and on the last winter league I caught probably 15, which was the difference between coming like 6th on the lake and I actually come 2nd. So tiny little hook. I mean, you would never come off of this now if this carries on. Obviously the thing to be aware of, ideally I probably should have had a couple of shallow rigs set up. So one a bit shallower, maybe one a little bit deeper, especially now we're obviously, because we're in winter. That is mega. It is mega fishing, honestly. Tunnel barn at its best. Just try and keep that fish out of that feed, because we are in winter mode. Don't really want to feel. I just got to go. Obviously, I've only just started doing this, and when they want to be up in the winter, they just want to be up. You could possibly throw just a few maggots in, but you can still go through. You know, if they had this with a couple of hours to go in your match, you still go through 2 or 3 pints of maggots. Look at that, brilliant, absolutely mega. So nice to actually come out and catch the F1 shallow. Just get one of those big fat red maggots on. Really important you get big maggots. Just flick it over. You know, it's beautiful because you don't miss any bites. I've not actually missed a bite there yet. Slightly better one. This is where you can catch those great big wise old things. Fantastic fishing. You probably wouldn't go any deeper than that, to be honest, unless it was a real deep venue. I would say sort of 18 to 20 inches is probably a real good depth to catch winter F1s on maggots. And you can just have one of these rigs set up, you know, set up, ready to go, just in case it does kick off. Look at that, just let it sit there. Doesn't get better than that. Freezing cold day. The amazing thing is, well, when I was fishing on the bottom on that line, there was hardly any indications. I caught a few, and I did have once when my float sort of just went on the side a little bit, and I thought, I wonder. You wouldn't think there was that many fish there. Absolutely amazing. Look at that, amazing. And that's what sort of winter F1 fishing can be like, especially when if they come shallow, you might get a little spell of really, you know, a little bit shallower, but you'll find that sort of depth where you just catch them nicely. And in the winter, that's exactly what you want. It's absolutely mega. I love it. I won't be going home here until the sun's gone down. I remember catching a few in the last winter league, and it was beautiful fishing. Little tiny rig like I've got on here, just doing exactly the same, not overcooking it with bait. There you go. Absolutely so enjoyable when they come shallow like that. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Not the biggest F1 to finish on, but considering it started raining, the cameraman's going to get wet, the camera's going to get ruined. I'm going to call that the last fish of the day. And I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the Preston YouTube channel for more videos like this one. And I hope you picked up some nice tips on not just winter F1 fishing, but going into the spring as well, which is not far away now. And for me, tunnel barring has been absolutely fantastic. It's always fantastic, but this year for me, well, the last couple of years I would say, using ground bait, using them little bait punches, like bread punches, put little bits of ground bait in, micros as well, has been an absolute must. And it's something I think that anybody out there who does this sort of fishing, get out there and try it, because it works amazingly, whether you're fishing with pellets or maggots like I've done today. So there you go, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.